Hey everyone, and thanks for joining me today. Today I have my friend Chris with me. So Chris, do you want to do a quick introduction about who you are?
Yeah, thanks, James. So I'm Chris Porter. Online, I have Porter Learning are all my social channels and website. So I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 6 years old, and recently I've been kind of realizing that I've just amassed this kind of compendium. I don't know if that's the right word, but a whole bunch of stuff around ADHD. And I've tried tons of things, and some of them have worked to kind of alleviate the symptoms or plug into my zone of genius. And so recently I've started to put that out there in a newsletter and be sharing with other people how to kind of um, not overcome their ADHD, but really accept it and find a good way of working with their ADHD instead of against it.
Awesome. Yeah, and thanks for joining. Just for background too, me and Chris have been chatting now for a couple months through the internet. And I think, just with so many people kind of coming to terms with the fact that they have ADHD or kind of realizing that. I know personally in my life, I have friends and family that have kind of realized that in the coming, probably the last 2 or 3 years, we'll talk about in a minute too. I just thought it'd be great to have Chris on here just to kind of talk about it because he's, again, had that built up knowledge of experience of years and years of knowing he's had it and kind of working through different problems or ways to solve it and stuff too. So I thought that'd be a good opportunity to have Chris on here for that. But I guess to kind of simplify it for people that might not know so much about it, what really is ADHD and what different types are out there that might be relevant for people.
Yeah. So, a lot of us probably know ADHD stands for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I really like a newer term that's come out called VAST. It stands for variable attention stimulus trait. And to me, that really encapsulates the fact that it's not all about that I can't pay attention, because sometimes I can hyper focus and really get into the weeds of something. Or I've been talking with my own coach about the fact that I have time blindness and I will just work on something and completely forget everything else. And I am just there in that moment. And then sometimes I'll kind of wake up and go, "Oh, I have a meeting in 5 minutes. I need to get ready." Or, "Oh, I'm going to be 5 minutes late for picking up my wife." And so, time blindness is one of those things. Distractibility is another. There's rejection sensitivity dysphoria is often an aspect of it. So the neurochemistry that Andrew Huberman has been sharing on his podcast, the the thing that I've kind of latched onto is that it is a an aspect of the way that my brain works, that I have lower dopamine than other people. And so very often when I'm starting to get distracted, it's because my dopamine is totally dipped and I need to either go do something else or do some kettlebell swings or go do some push-ups. And when I come back, now all of a sudden I've kind of filled my dopamine tank and I can focus again. And so for me, it's that my dopamine is dipping like all throughout the day constantly, and I just need to find, I may need to get up and walk around for a little bit, or set a timer for 25 minutes, work, and then take a quick break, and then come back, and boom, now my dopamine is popped up.
And I think at least the catalyst for a lot of people I know, because like I've had at least 3 or 4 different friends now in the last 2 years come out and realize they have it. Through the various symptoms they've had since high school and college days and whatever else and earlier into their careers. But now it's like blatant for them is the fact that like the pandemic shift and work from home, having their total routines thrown off, made them kind of realize they have it. So what have you seen as working with people you're coaching or people you're interviewing? Like, what has the pandemic or work from home done for people with ADHD, and how's that kind of like come out in the discussions you've had?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, you could only be diagnosed with ADHD if you presented symptoms as a child, and adult ADHD didn't exist. Or like, um, if you weren't diagnosed as a kid, then there's no chance of you getting that diagnosis as an adult. And more recently, and they also thought, yeah, some people grow out of ADHD and they don't have it anymore, which is also not true. It's just that we find patterns, behaviors, tactics, and strategies that work well that diminish the symptoms and make it so you don't see those issues anymore in some adults. They found strategies that work really well. So in the book ADHD 2.0, they talk about this guy that ran marathons. That he was just a great runner, and all of a sudden he hurt his foot and he couldn't go running anymore. And then his ADHD came roaring in where he had never exhibited symptoms of it before, and it was that running had boosted that dopamine and had made it so he just could really focus easily and get his work done. So with the pandemic, um, so many of our strategies have changed. That drive into the office where we had time to process what we needed to be doing, kind of making that mental checklist. And for me, even that drive like gives me that stimulus and that dopamine rush of like new inputs that when I arrive somewhere, I'm ready to go and I can think through, what needs to happen and get it done. So with the pandemic and working remotely, that's changed for so many people.
Yeah.
On Twitter, I've seen at least 20 people say, I was diagnosed in the last 2 years with ADHD, adult ADHD. And now researchers are starting to come out with, papers and academic studies around, this new phenomenon of adult ADHD, because it really is apparent that our current or our previous ways of working um, don't work anymore,
Yeah.
especially with remote work.
I guess kind of a side question on that too. I mean, do you feel like the work from home lifestyle and just being on a computer and not having that access to move around like you would in an office, or like to get to an office, either bike commuting or driving, that kind of stuff too, like and do you think it's almost like, I hate to use the word unnatural, but like I almost kind of wonder for that some people too, like if you don't have like office mates that you can talk to and kind of like mentally
Hmm.
reset and have that too, like do you think that's part of it too? Is this like, is this almost too, we're too focused in our devices to not have that stimulus that like allows people to recalibrate a little bit? Or you think that's not as much of a big of a deal?
I, that's a great question. I see remote work as kind of a double-edged sword in that when you're working remotely, your boss doesn't know if you're like standing up and sitting down at a standing desk. Like they
Yeah.
don't know if you like walk your dog, at your lunch break, or if you're doing the Pomodoro method and you take a 5-minute break to, go get water or make tea, every 25 minutes. As long as when you come back, you're ready to work again. Like they don't even know any of that, right? So if you can find good strategies that work well for you, and another one is like you and I met through jumping on some Zoom calls and having that every Tuesday we come on and we talk to each other about like what are we working on and how are we doing. um I've created that structure for myself, and so that has really helped me. If you haven't created those types of structures or found methods like the Pomodoro method or those kind of habits of going and walking your dog at a certain time every day, and giving yourself that freedom and flexibility to take those breaks or to take a long walk at lunch, it you might really be struggling. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is to help people to kind of transition from, office life and the patterns and behaviors that had worked well for them in the office life. How can you apply new patterns and behaviors to remote work? And for some people, I think it can actually be a better situation for them, um, if they can set up those habits and set up those positive patterns. Um, but otherwise, if they don't have them, like yeah, it's going to be a real struggle.
Yeah, that's a really powerful way to frame it. I think disregarding all the other discussions around remote work and productivity and all that kind of stuff too, that's a really interesting way of framing it. Just that, like, it can be really terrible for people if they don't, because like you mentioned earlier, when you're in the office pre-pandemic, you had that kind of like forced routine that you have found that group into. and the things you do at the office and the people you talk to and the way you get around your office and the way you take breaks is already kind of predefined in your work.
Mhm.
Whereas like, yeah, if you didn't right now, like you have so many options, like you said, and like I have kettlebells in my back room, and I'll sometimes like go back and do kettlebells, or even like for me, like I find
Kinda.
yeah, I love kettlebells.
Yeah.
People who know me personally know I love kettlebells, but the or like for me, for instance, like I try and jam on meetings in the morning so I can like go for runs or bike rides or cross country ski in the
Mhm.
afternoon. So I've kind of rebuilt my life around this lifestyle, but it really is like,
Mm.
a great thing where like you kind of enjoy it if you or not enjoy it, but you can like find your great ways and strategies if you think about it, you're intentional about it. But if you're not
Yep.
intentional, I'm sure it's a lot harder. Go ahead.
Well, and so like with that point, um, some of the things that we've mentioned are all kind of things where it's remote work has shifted the responsibility from the employer, like walking by your desk and looking at your screen to see if you're working or not, and it shifted the responsibility onto us. And I know for me, I'm very like socially motivated, like or externally motivated by others, like checking in with me. And so the one of the biggest realizations I've had is that I can still set that up, right? Like that, I met you on Twitter. Well, no, we met on an entrepreneur group, and you reached out on LinkedIn, and then I was like, hey, would you want to like have an accountability group? And so we started like sharing just like what are you working on? And I've now found others. Like there's an app called Groove where you can pop on and work for 50 minutes, and you say what you're going to work on just with a whole bunch of random other people online. And then you write in your task list as you're doing those tasks, and you check them off. It posts them in that group, on your phone, and just with those four other people, and so they can all see, oh, Chris is really getting stuff done. And then at the end of the 50 minutes you check in again and say, how did that go for you? Like, oh, were you successful, or did you just pop on YouTube? And so you can hop on the grooves constantly throughout the day. I think I've done like 9 or 10 in a day before.
Cool.
And that's that external stimulus of like, I'm publicly committing to other people what I'm going to work on, which that I was getting that when I was in the office. You'd walk over and get coffee and like, oh, what are you working on today? Oh, I've got this big report. I just got to finish it. Oh, well, I just told Jane I was working on that report. So when you come back, it's that mental trigger. Like, if I see Jane, I better have that report finished, even though she's not your boss. It's just some
Yeah.
other random coworker, but you feel that social pressure, when at the old way of working. The new way of working, you can still set that up, but you just have to be a little bit more intentional and know some of these tools that are out there.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's body doubling. Is that what you called it, right?
Yeah. So the app is called Groove, and that process is called body doubling. And so I'm doing body doubling sessions on Zoom where I'm attending other people's sessions. So there's like cave day, there's focus sessions, but then I'm going to be creating my own focus sessions and body doubling via Zoom for other people that all have ADHD. Because uh, one of the problems I was seeing is I would go on, cave day, and there's, 75 or 80 other people that are all, on Zoom working, and you do a quick little breakout session and say what you're going to work on. And then you come back in and work. But these are just randos on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, it's not somebody that like I know, like, and trust. Whereas when you and I meet and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to work on this, like there's way more kind of social pressure in a good way to get that stuff done.
Yep.
And so I want that same thing, but for other people that have like minds to mine, that have ADHD. And candidly, I'm creating this group for myself too, because I want to work with other people that have ADHD. Those are my people. Those are the people that I get along with. And in my consulting work, I have other ADHD people that I work with. And yeah, so body doubling is awesome. It is like just either 25 minutes or an hour of intentional work, getting things done that maybe you were having a really hard time getting done before, like taxes or even cleaning up your office or doing bookkeeping. So
Yeah. Cool. So that's one, I guess, strategy. And I know you're kind of putting together a guide, or you have a guide put together on a bunch of different strategies for improving your ability to perform with ADHD. Um, So not to like obviously a lot you can go through, but like, is there one or two other ones you'd say like this is a really successful one that I've seen a lot of people have success implementing that you could share, and then maybe you could talk about the guide too.
Hmm. I'd say the other one, if I had to pick one other thing, it would be like giving yourself permission to be physically active, and that could mean going and working out, or I don't know, like let's see, I'm blocking, yeah, so my juggling balls, like if I'm feeling distracted, I might just pick up some of my juggling balls and juggle for 5 minutes, or standing up and I've got a balance board and balancing on that. There, that mind body connection, I think, for ADHDers is just much stronger than for the general public. And so when I'm feeling distracted or antsy, often it's my body saying, "Hey, I just want you to get up and move around." And so I can't just push through that, like because of that mind body connection, I have to go do something. But it doesn't have to be like, oh, I need to go for a hike in the mountains for the next 4 hours.
Yeah,
I can take that quick 5 minutes, jump on the balance board, and my balance is great when I have my eyes open, and it sucks when I close my eyes. So if you see me, like I'll have to record some videos, but I'll jump on there and close my eyes, and I just look like this drunk toddler, like trying to like stand up straight. But when I come back, like I just worked out that part of my brain, and there's some study, I don't remember it, but that for ADHD people, that balance is connected to their ability to focus. And so when you strengthen that part of your brain that's related to balance, so whether you have a balancing ball or a balancing board like I do, when you come back to work, you just worked out that muscle and made it stronger. And now, like talk about guys that go to the gym and they're like, I'm pumped,
no,
like I just pumped up my
mentally,
brain.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Everyone likes a good pump though. Get the kettlebells for the
yeah.
you can get a physical pump too and a mental pump.
Yeah.
So you mentioned ADHD people are your people. So kind of like a parting thought here, a parting question. How do you recommend people reach out to you, or how can they start getting information from you if they find this information valuable and want to get more help from you?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. So I have a newsletter at porterlearning.org, and I'm working on creating this kind of online group for ADHD people where we'll be doing body doubling sessions, have kind of a coaching and accountability in a group setting. And then I'm also working on doing one-on-one coaching. So I have two clients right now where I'm helping them on an individual basis, weekly meeting, talking through what's kind of their presenting problem with ADHD and how can we take a look at it and you know recognize that we're not going to fix anyone, but maybe redirect or just find some strategies that work well to alleviate the symptoms.
Awesome.
So
Great.
yeah, you can find me on porterlearning.org. My Twitter is porterlearning. Um, my LinkedIn handle is the same thing, and yeah, you could subscribe to the newsletter or reach out on there.
Awesome. And I'll drop a link to all those stuff in the description here in the post too,
Awesome,
so you can
awesome.
access down there. But yeah, thanks for joining me, Chris. It was good talking to you.
Yeah, it was great catching up with you, James. Thanks so much.